Hello everyone. This isn't a typical video, but I'm glad you can finally hear my voice. As someone who has a modest amount of formal training in music and enjoys being on social media, I would like to talk about someone who has garnered a somewhat infamous reputation on the internet. To be clear, I'm not here to cancel anyone or take legal action. I would never do that, but I find this is a great opportunity to chime in as he seems to be picking up in popularity. For those of you who don't know him, he's a fairly well-known individual in the classical music community. He has a large following on the internet, with over 1 million followers on Instagram and over 600,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. According to his own website, he describes himself as a classical composer, and he also notes that he graduated from UC Berkeley with a bachelor's in music and that he currently resides in Kyoto, Japan. While he seems amazing to the untrained eye, many people, myself included, agree that he falls short of the person he claims to be. The main problem I would like to discuss is how he presents himself on social media. While he can dazzle an audience, he also writes comments like this. Honestly, he can be over the top, flashy, and built for attention. To put it simply, he portrays this mad genius persona on the internet. It seems to convince everyone that he's destined to be the next Mozart. Others have also voiced how he seems to just be displaying dark academia and really nothing of musical significance. In this video, I would like us to take a look at certain details in his posts so we can get a better sense of who he really is and how he's affecting the landscape of classical music today. We can start nice and simple. Whenever you open his videos, the first thing you notice is his tuxedo. He throws his tails in this extremely exaggerated way. It seems cool at first, but it quickly becomes annoying, as he does this in nearly every video. This is not normal at all. For reference, let's take a moment to look at pianist Evgeny Kissin as he arrives at his piano. As you can see, he is calm, focused, and professional. All traits he seems to lack at times. Approaching a piano should be simple and easy. Also, I would hate to tell him that almost nobody dresses like this anymore. Another topic worth bringing up is his handwriting, and this is a really big one. Many people have already commented on his poor handwriting. Bad handwriting usually arises from writing fast, but if you look carefully, you notice that all his lines seem to curve. This doesn't really make sense, as drawing lines from top to bottom is usually faster and more efficient. This means his poor handwriting is likely intentional and meant for artistry. This very much appeals to the dark academia aesthetic I mentioned from before. For reference, let's take a look at the manuscripts from Mozart and Beethoven. We can see here that while their handwriting is a bit messy, it's still very legible. The lines are straight and to the point. They don't curve whatsoever, as there's no real need for it. I honestly kind of feel bad for his fans who will have difficulty reading his music. I almost think his music could look better on a mug or a t-shirt or something. Along the same lines, we can take a look at his room. Yet again, there's something a bit strange. The top of his piano is all cluttered with books and it's pretty messy, but the rest of his room is crystal clean. This makes it painfully obvious that he is staging what's seen on screen. I mean, he is posting on social media after all. He is trying his best to convince the viewer that he can't contain all his thoughts, but this is kind of unrealistic. As an aside, I once entered my conductor's room and there were literally papers and pens all over the floor. It was pretty chaotic and honestly nothing like what was shown on screen. I also think it's a good idea to talk about his signature. It doesn't seem like much, but the size of a signature can say a lot about a person. I find it strange that his signature spans 2 lines of music. This implies that he shows great confidence in himself, but knowing what we've previously discussed, it feels a bit narcissistic. It only makes sense for the title of the piece to be this large. Most composers write their signatures much more subtly, and it's harder to notice. Or they might just leave it out altogether. He has also made it clear on social media that he has many different interests. This includes writing academic papers, which I'm sure many of you have already seen. He has created what he calls a new mathematical framework. Honestly, I don't have too much criticism to offer. While I'm surprisingly a data science major, I don't usually come across this kind of math. I mean, his work appears to be neat, but I think it would be more appropriate if he posted them on an alternative account, or just an account dealing with purely math. I really don't see why math would actually complement his musical abilities, other than it being more of a mental or creative exercise. He might simply be building his persona, but I'm not entirely sure. In addition, he's written some philosophical papers such as On the Beauty of Contradiction in Christ. Again, I don't really have the necessary background to analyze them, but I think they would be better off on an alternative account. There are also times where he can be really off topic on social media. A great example of this is one of his YouTube videos entitled, I Bought a BMW i8 Roadster at 22. I know this is not that serious because YouTube is not his main focus, but this definitely seems a bit immature and really not related to any of his work. And note that this was only posted about a year ago. With that being said, it's finally time to talk about the music itself. It would not be fair to call him a bad musician. He is honestly one of the most passionate musicians I've seen in a long time, and he's full of energy. The music he makes often resembles that of the classical and romantic periods of classical music. Others have also said that they somewhat resemble the music of Studio Ghibli because of the whimsical nature of his works. As a result, I find his music to be nice, but it's nothing too original since he is taking so much inspiration from other genres. While doing my research, one composition that actually resonated with me was Darling, a nice and simple waltz. I honestly loved it. It was nothing over the top, the song felt steady, enjoyable, and introspective. I would recommend you listen to it. His technical abilities are decent. I believe he can handle most piano pieces okay, but he won't be playing any of the transcendental etudes anytime soon. His improvisational skills are also impressive. On his recordings, I rarely noticed any times where he fumbled the notes, but his playing could be certainly cleaner at times. Such an example is his recording of the fourth Nocturne, which I think could be revised as the latter part of the recording felt very rushed and rough around the edges. He has a number of composing habits, however, that are really hurting his music. Many complain about his use of dynamics and actually the lack thereof. Lots of his pieces are played forte and only forte, making the pieces feel harsh and over the top. Adding more contrast and variety is key here. The same thing can be said for his use of octaves, which comes off as excessive in most cases. Others have also noticed his use of the circle of fifths progression, and the fact that he uses the same progressions over and over again. I find this point to be valid, but less important, as most progressions in classical music and even modern music are repetitive and simple to begin with. Still, many of his fans are not aware that the style of his music is not unique to him. Many of the tricks, progressions, even the contours of his melodies have all been used before by other composers. In one of his videos, he talks about the magic of the circle of fifths. This may seem amazing, but this is actually an elementary idea in music theory most musicians already know about. There is still a world of other music he can explore, like the harmonies from Eric Satie or the rhythms of Stravinsky, for example. He doesn't seem to be aware of this, and I hate to say this, but his music comes off as simplistic because of it. We're nearing the end of the video now, but if you've enjoyed this format, please let me know by liking and subscribing to show your support. Overall, I find that he doesn't fit the mold of a classical composer very well. Sure, we live in the 21st century, but composing is still a prominent art form, and he has yet to refine his skills. It appears that everyday people enjoy his music more than the legitimate musicians themselves. He doesn't represent classical music in the culture very well, from how he flashes his tuxedo to his music feeling artificially intense. At the same time, I think we ought to appreciate how he's bringing more attention to classical music in the first place, even if people are getting a skewed representation of what classical music really is. I mean, if you enjoy his music, by all means, go and listen to enter a new genre of music. If you don't like his music, then just don't listen to it. Nobody's forcing you to do so. With that being said, I personally think he's better at carving his own path than he is at trying to reach the heights of Beethoven or Mozart. His handwriting, playing style, and even the way he dresses are unique to him. But I don't think it's right to call him a complete genius or an established classical composer. I would prefer to see him become someone more like Leve, who clearly takes inspiration from classical music and puts it directly in her own music, creating a unique blend of the two. It would be better if people knew him perhaps by name and not by the generic classical composer title, which he clearly doesn't fit. To put it simply, he should do what he does and be who he is, just with 50% of the ego.